gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harret Shawn Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harret Shawn Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.
ETM Hotel, Rennie, Shawn. Welcome in peace. My name is Shawn. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Science with Shawn. We are back. Give it up for Brother Chavis on his Johnson & Johnson EAU information. I'm going to slow it down a little bit differently. Please make sure that you tune into the previous episode, share that information, get that out there to the people, because it's an analysis of the data from Johnson & Johnson. Speaking of which, man, as you come in, like the show, share the show. Tell a friend. We're in the building again. Let me try to go in a little bit different direction. I wanna kind of bring y'all along to the evolution of actual Johnson & Johnson's way. So, adenoviruses, right? We all should know what they are, right? We all should know what they are. If you don't know what they are, I'm gonna give you a little brief tour guide onto what they are, and then this should bring back what Chavis was saying in full circle regarding all the information and the data. So hold on 1 second. Let me get this out. Hope everybody is doing all right this evening. You're just leaving work and everything seems to be going well for you. Let's put all the information let's put all our studies together and let's see if we actually learn something. You have people right now talking. I mean, the scientific community is having heavy conversations about Johnson & Johnson. The normal people aren't. We ain't having that conversation at all. We like, okay, whatever. All I want to know is this, that, and the third. So let's deal with some of the stuff, and then I'm gonna bring you along the relevance of Johnson & Johnson and why the information Chavis just kicked was pretty much very informative for our people. Very much. Gotta have it. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. I don't know if anybody gonna be in here, but anybody catching the replay, You know, please share this with your family members, friends, and everybody else. So real quick, let's deal with it. You know, viruses. All right, there are at least 52 immunologically distinct serotypes of adenoviruses that can cause human infections. Now, adenoviruses are usually stable to chemical and physical agents and to varied pH, thus allowing for prolonged survival outside of the body. In the United States, adenovirus serotypes 4 and 7 most commonly cause respiratory illnesses. Adenoviruses are transmitted by respiratory droplets, fecal oral transmission, and occasionally through contact with contaminated objects or water. I want y'all to know what I'm talking about right here. Some adenoviruses serotypes can establish persistent asymptomatic infections in tonsils, adenoids, and intestines of infected people who can shed these viruses for months or years. In military enlisted training centers, adenoviruses have historically caused substantial and prolonged outbreaks of respiratory illnesses. Now, adenoviruses most commonly cause respiratory illnesses. However, depending on the infecting serotype, adenoviruses may also cause conjunctivitis or gastroenteritis, basically bad bowels, cystis, and less commonly neurological illnesses. All right, so I'm gonna leave that right there. The article is in the chat. You want to know more about these adenoviruses, and we're going to deal with the let's deal with this adenovirus vector COVID-19 vaccine. But first, we got to get into the actual pros and cons. And then we can deal with, actually, I can just do it this way. It's fine. We can do it like this. This was published on February 12th, right in the clinical trials arena. It says adenovirus vector vaccines for COVID-19 are at a disadvantage in the vaccine campaign. You've heard me say this before because the low durability experts said, and that's mainly because of the efficacy coming out. And then you already had other vaccines, mRNA vaccines, hit the scene and show great response and efficacy. All right, so adenovirus vector vaccines for COVID-19, again, is at a disadvantage, they say. Anti-vector immune responses anticipated following first round of vaccinations and may impact the vaccine's efficacy, and the same vector is used again for revaccinations, they explain. So this news service reported earlier, February 11th, that long-term durability has somewhat taken a backseat in COVID-19 vaccine development owing to new variants of concern, arguing the case for repeat vaccinations. Experts flagged that adenovirus vector vaccines, on top of having to adjust their antigen to address new variants, would also have to monitor anti-vector responses. Now, of the adenovirus vector vaccine frontrunners, the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca may have the advantage in the first round of vaccines compared to Johnson & Johnson, right? They're saying that they have an advantage because the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, even though it hasn't been active in the United States, it's been working itself out in Europe, in other places in the world, South America, things of that nature, right? So, we're just getting to a point of really fully understanding if adenovector vaccines can stand up to the challenge. With AstraZeneca, there was faulty data. That faulty data led to the EAU for AstraZeneca being denied by the FDA. And therefore, AstraZeneca never made it to the EAU process in North America for us. However, other places, they have filed for EAU and they are active. We just didn't like the data. So there is some benefits, right? We all understand human and chimpanzee adenovirus vectors do not naturally lend themselves to repeat dosing compared with other vaccine technologies, as adenoviruses are also pathogens themselves, which is pretty much is what this is saying here. And this is what makes this relevant, because you're dealing with this. You're dealing with basically some form of what is made. Remember, a few weeks ago, Chambers and myself, we talked about this Johnson & Johnson and what kind of vaccine it was. Right? This is not the mRNA vaccine. This is this is a second generation vaccine. And it's going to behave the way it's going to behave, but can it behave, and can it defend against different variants? And I believe Chavis answered that question. He answered that question in the previous video, specifically, right? So you got Sputnik going on in the community. They said that about Sputnik. See, it's same type as it's adenovirus vector vaccine. And they've been touting it to be 100% effective. You heard one doctor say, well, you may not have heard that doctor say that, but there was one doctor who actually said that. And if Unc was available, man, I would have really loved to spice this conversation up and play this video, which I think I still might do it, and just get into the actual conversation that we had with the doctor. But anyway, pros and cons. All right, pros and cons. Excuse that. Now, when you're dealing with the pros and cons of the adenovirus-based SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, you got to look at it. Published October 9th. There's a lot of pros. There's a lot of pros, and I don't want to bore you, but I just want to kind of sum up the way this article ends from cell.com. Okay, now it says most data suggests that the immune response to coronavirus is transient, 6 months, right? With regard to COVID-19, the more severe the clinical complications, the greater the immune response against SARS-CoV-2, as is the case for most viral infections. So therefore, asymptomatic mild COVID-19 would induce a lower immune response that would disappear within weeks. Fold this onto the kinetics and efficacy of an ad-based vaccine, right? We're talking about adenovirus vaccine. And the law of parsimony suggests that we need long-term antigen expression in a favorable environment to generate long-term protection. So, then 70% of us are anti-ad will target vaccine-infected cells. It is possible that ad-specific T could prevent lysis of vaccine-infected cells and allow long-term expression of SARS-CoV-2 antigens. This would be a welcome surprise. Follow-up studies from HIV and Ebola ad-based vaccines suggest that a 4-dose vaccine regime can induce immune hallmarks of protection for up to 2 years. But the idea of a 4-dose person for billions of people during the first round of vaccinations, perhaps followed by a booster shot every year, is difficult to imagine. While at least one phase 1 trial suggested that a one-shot ad-based vaccine could be sufficient, it is probable that this will be transient protection in most adults, and particularly ephemeral protection in seniors. So think about what they were saying in October and basically what I just summed up. There's some pros, and I read some in that last paragraph, but there's some cons, because they're like, we need to do this, we need to do that. So what if we did this, 4 shots? And then it was like, nah, that might not be good. So they're like, well, this is a 1 shot. And then what about a booster? We really don't know. So they were dealing with the complications of how effective these adenovirus vaccines would be last year, while mRNA vaccines were getting ready to take center stage, because it took them less time all last year than it would be for adenovirus vaccines. So these things take time. The process continues to build. So they're looking at efficacy rates beyond 6 months. So they're saying, okay, this might be a 6-month thing. This might be a year thing. This might be a 24-month thing. We got to see. So as the data continues to build, the more we begin to understand. However, mRNA vaccines could get it right, but this adenovirus vaccine also could get it and hit it right on the head where we needed to in order to do everything. Now, what I mean by that is this. Johnson & Johnson got approved. We just heard Brother Chavis mention that. We heard him go through the whole spiel about the collective data via a 62-page summary down into about 25 or 30 slides, I believe he had. There was a lot of information compacted into what he said, and does require some rewind and paying attention to. That is why we also drop the links in the description so that you can obtain that, and then you could build with him along the journey while replaying the data. So I wanted to touch on I wanted to commend Johnson & Johnson's evolution into the adenovirus vaccine and answering the challenging questions regarding what will come of it. Now, I mentioned in the last video specifically that I wanted to deal with the deaths, right? So I'm gonna deal with the deaths. I blew it up on my screen. You should be able to see it, but I'm gonna make it to where it's a little bit more accessible to you from here. And you should be able to see it now. So, serious adverse events, right? We had deaths. As of January 22nd, there were 19 deaths, 3 vaccines, 16 placebo. 2 deaths in the vaccine group was secondary to respiratory infections, not due to COVID-19. See, I told y'all that I was going to give you this information. A 61-year-old participant died of pneumonia on day 24, following an onset of symptoms at day 13. A 42-year-old participant with HIV died on day 59 following diagnosis of lung abscess on day 33. A 66-year-old participant died of an unknown cause after waking up with shortness of breath on day 45. Now, the placebo recipients died of pneumonia, suicide, accidental overdose, myocardial infarction, MELC, unknown cause, and confirmed COVID-19. So if you look, there's a number beside the deaths, and you might not be able to see it from your screen, but I'm gonna give you the placebo because they had 16 deaths, and I'm highlighting it. I wish I could highlight it in a different color, but here you go. All right. You had 2 died pneumonia, 1 from suicide, 1 from overdose, 1 from myocardial infarction. Malice, you had 1. Unknown causes. There were 3 unknown causes that haven't been confirmed. And 6 people died of COVID-19 in the placebo group. There were 21,885 people in the placebo group, if I remember the data correctly. And you had 16 deaths. All right, in the placebo, you had 3. And they were specific: 61, 42, 66 years old. All right, non-fatal serious adverse events. The proportion of participants who had at least 1 SAE, which is serious adverse event, remember the abbreviation, reported January 22nd, were 0.4% in the vaccine group, 0.4% in the placebo group. Pretty equal. Most commonly reported serious adverse effect was appendicitis, occurring in 6 vaccine recipients via placebo. There were no significant numerical imbalances in the SAEs preferred term. All right, 7 SAEs occurring in 7 vaccine recipients and 3 SAEs occurring in the placebo recipient were assessed by the investigator as related to study vaccines. Of the 7 SAEs, the vaccine group, the sponsor assessed 3 as related, likely related, 2 as possible related, 2 as unrelated to the vaccine. Now, we didn't dealt with the deaths. because that's heavy on people's hearts and minds. So here's your FDA summary. The following narratives for the 3 SAEs in the group. Okay. You had a 42-year-old male, a 30-year-old male, a 35-year-old male. All had some form of, adverse effects, right? They ain't died. They weren't a part of the people that died. We dealt with the deaths first. They all were treated. Later would be released. Continued on. They're continuing to follow up. All right. You heard him. You heard Chavis last time mention the Bell's palsy. 2 on the vaccine, 2 on the placebo. See, what Johnson & Johnson did was they got more specific. They got more specific because they saw how Moderna and Pfizer EAU rollout went. So the document improved based on the 2 people that went before them, which allowed them to get their tables set accurately to address some concerns in case common people wanted to review the data. All right. Some of the highlights here in this is the fact that you heard me mention in the previous video is that they dealt with people with existing conditions. You know, you heard me mention HIV. You had people with diabetes. You had obesity. You had people with heart issues, lung issues. You know what I'm saying? You had a variety of pre-existing conditions involved in these trials. But most importantly, pregnancies. There was 8 pregnancies reported through January 22nd. 8. 3 in the vaccine group. Well, yeah, 4, my bad. 4 in the vaccine group, 4 in the placebo. And 7 participants, 3 vaccine, 4 placebo. The vaccination was given within 30 days after last menstrual period. And in 1 recipient, vaccination was prior to the LMP. So unsolicited AEs related to pregnancy include spontaneous abortion, 1 vaccine, 0 placebo, incomplete abortion, 0 in the vaccine, 1 in the placebo, elective abortion, 0 in the vaccine, 2 in the placebo, ectopic pregnancies, 1 in the vaccine, 0 in the placebo. Among participants in the vaccine group, 2 pregnancies are ongoing with outcomes unknown at this time. A combined developmental and a prenatal, postnatal reproductive toxicity study of the AD26, which is the vaccine name, in rabbits was submitted to FDA on the 19th. So their animal trial data was submitted in January. The FDA review of this study concluded that the vaccine given prior to mating and during gestation periods of dose 1 × 10 VP 2 times the human dose did not have any adverse effects on female reproduction, fetal embryo development, or postnatal development. So they already had the science based on the preclinical trial study. So as you see, Pfizer and BioNTech is doing their studies on pregnant women now to bring forth more data. And this information regarding the Johnson & Johnson will continue to be held and will be continue to be reviewed based on the people involved, because you had over 43,000 people involved in that. There was also a safety summary in the description. The safety summary was pretty much pleased with the overall data, the overall phase 3 data in its population. See, there was 43,781 people. All right, so I had it mixed up a little bit. 21,895 in the vaccine, 21,888 in the placebo. They all met expectations for efficacy and FDA's guideline. You're dealing with the 14-day and 28-day increase in efficacy. And like Chavis said, the data is there. It's solid, right? So you heard him mention the follow-up. There's a continuation of the follow-up. And, we're waiting on that. Now what we're waiting on from Johnson & Johnson is the results from its double shot, its 2-shot trial data, because they recently ramped that up, and I believe they should be in the next, I don't know when, but I know Well, I can't say I don't know when. I know soon we should be getting results from the 2-shot. And it will be revealed to Chavis before it's revealed to us if his wife got the placebo or the actual vaccine. If she gets the placebo, she will in return be able to get the vaccine following that data. All right. So that's what we're doing here. Now, the vaccine effectiveness against asymptomatic infection, available day 71, shows from a small subset of participants in the study with the infrequent evaluations of serological and virological measurements are limited to assess the effect of the vaccine in preventing asymptomatic infection. There is uncertainty about the interpretation of these data, and definitive conclusion cannot be drawn at the time. So they're forthcoming in that, and when we get out to that particular part or period, we will know more. The long-term effects of the data, people ask that question, but we don't know how long this, that, and the third gonna last. Enjoy the ride, right? This vaccine will be used to help add to the vaccine campaigns that have already rolled out and are fighting. We dealt with the known risk. I don't want to go over the known risk. I think for Black people, y'all just want to know how many people died. And we can safely say 16 people died in the placebo group and 3 in the vaccinated group, and all unrelated to the trial. Some of the other highlights that I liked as far as the data is concerned, let me get back to 39 was the page I always go to, but I think it's 23. Let me get to page 23. I think it's 23. Yeah, 23. So earlier you had heard me mention about people with pre-existing conditions, right? With the one or more comorbidities. There you go. Asthma, cancer, right? Cerebrovascular disease, cystic fibrosis, chronic kidney, COPD, serious heart conditions, HIV, hypertension, immunocompromised state from blood transplant, immunocompromised state from organ transplant. They had them involved, organ and blood transplant people, liver disease, neurologic conditions, obesity, pulmonary fibrosis, sickle cell, type 1 and 2 diabetes, thalassemia, right? So you had, look, they had a total of 12,000 people that were obese, right? Total of 17,000 people with comorbidities, one or more. 4,500 hypertension. Serious heart condition, 1,008. HIV candidates, 1,218. Asthma, 562. Cancer, 226. Cerebrovascular disease, 158. Only 4 for cystic fibrosis. COPD was 230. 437. 79 that had blood transplants, 10 that had organ transplants, right? Type 2 diabetes, 3,000. So there's a lot of data. Thank you all for not all lying at once. Yeah, man. So there's a lot of data here, and the job was to pull out a lot of the reading and kind of deal with it. But pages 23 and 39 were very important for our people who want to know those answers. Like, what are the adverse effects? You know, how many people died from the vaccine? How many people was in the trial? How many people, was this, that, and the third? So let's deal with the other specifics in the that people want to know about. Race. There was 8,500 Black people in the trials. You see it on the screen. 85 Black or African Americans. The majority of this trial was 25,000 white people. Unknown or multiple races, 2,400. American Indian or Alaskan Native was 4,000. So the second highest participants in this trial were Black or African Americans. Yep. SARS-CoV-2 serostatus at baseline. How many positive tests? 4,200 from the placebo and the vaccinated. Negative tests, there were 38,000 negative tests. Missing 1,271. So to even tell you that. They had 17,000 people with at least one comorbidity and 25,000 without. That's data. That's hardcore data. So there were some good results here. People were from Latin America, North America, and South Africa, like I told you before. It's just reiterating all of those things. So don't want to harp too much on this. Chavis just did a whole build on this on previous Science with Shawn. Please check that out. Deal with that information. That, like he said earlier in that, the continuation of the clinical trial following insurance of the EAU is there. We should be able to go on YouTube and review the actual clinical trial study, that the live data soon. But you got to walk. You got to know what an adenovirus is. And then you got to know what an adenovirus vector vaccine is. And then you got to know the pros and cons of the vaccine. And then you'll be able to understand the trial. Now, there's some big words. You don't need a dictionary. Just for the viewers who think somebody just be talking. It's the actual data. And we've been having the data for the last 48 hours. If you need, so it looks similar to Moderna's, but it's not. It's not. And here's your glossary for what those words mean. Remember, we always talk about that. We got to really mention it because, you know, some people act like we don't know what certain words mean. And they try to take shots at people and trap them into saying stuff. But we got the abbreviations here. I know, Brother Corey, you might be listening in right now. You know what I'm saying? And they can't pump fake us, brother. We got it. It's on page 5. And they tell us their journey. So I like what I saw. I'm pleased with the actual evidence. You know what I'm saying? 85% efficacy after the 28 days. So it gets better with time. We're going to see what the second shot does. And then we will really be able to uncover if a second shot is necessary, really, for Johnson & Johnson, or the one shot seems to be holding it down on its own. That's my piece right there. I want to keep it bite-sized because I want to keep Brother Chavis' information bite-sized as well. So that's why I split it up instead of running them together. You know, like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. Catch us on Kofi Pie Side TV in a couple of hours. We'll have a little Black History moment or something. You never know. But we're going to talk our spiel. On that note, Shawn Hotel.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harek Shawn Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From cocaine to consciousness by any Harriet Shawn Carroll. Funny as I learned, we all learn by Kofi Paisai. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaiTV.com.